You guys, continuing the Star Wars saga reviews and the Star Wars prequel reviews. I'm talking about Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, Episode 3. Now, as you might have noticed, the first two were listed under Epic Rants. I ranted on those two because Phantom Menace I hate, but Attack of the Clones I hate even more. Revenge of the Sith, it's a little bit of a different story. You might not see this one titled under an Epic Rant. Why? First of all, is the plot of the movie. The plot of this one is it takes place not long after Attack of the Clones, and, obviously Anakin and Padme are now married, but, they have to keep it a secret from everybody, and the Jedi Council wants Anakin to spy on Chancellor Palpatine because they think he's up to something. And Palpatine knows this pretty early on, and he manipulates Anakin Skywalker to turn to the dark side to basically save Padme's life because he's having visions of Padme dying, giving birth, and similar to the visions he had with his mother, and we see how that turned out. So, and Anakin doesn't want to go through that again, so he's like, alright, listen, I'll do whatever you say. You know the power of the dark side. Your master, Darth Plagueis the Wise, could save the ones he loved from dying, but not himself. So yeah, I'll listen to you, whatever you gotta say. That's basically the plot of Revenge of the Sith. Now, like I said, I don't hate this one as much as the first two. I still don't think it's a great movie, and it's not nearly on par with the original trilogy, which I'll start talking about next, but Revenge of the Sith, it is definitely the best of the prequels, by far. It is the most watchable one, and it's one that I don't have too many problems with. It's still got problems, don't get me wrong. It's still got a list of problems, but not nearly as bad as the first two. So let's talk about Anakin. Because as you guys know, I was not a fan of Jake Lloyd's Anakin. I'm not a fan of Hayden Christensen's Anakin. And I gotta say, Anakin is still bad in this movie. There's no getting around that. But every time Anakin was doing dark things in this movie, like when he was part of the dark side and he was angry and stuff like that. That stuff, I thought Hayden Christensen worked pretty decently. And still not great, but decent. But of course, anytime he's with Padme again, he's still giving her the rape stares, even though they're married now and she's pregnant. So apparently he did rape her. But yeah, he's still giving her all. I still don't buy the Anakin Padme relationship. I buy it a little bit more in this one, just because everything around this movie is pretty good. So I kind of have to give that a pass. And luckily, you're not forced. It's not forced down your throat nearly as much as it was in Attack of the Clones. So, let's talk about Palpatine. Spoiler alert, Chancellor Palpatine is in fact Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious? Darth Sidious! The Sith Lord that the Jedi have been looking for some time. The one who's been, the man behind the curtain. He's been, he's Count Dooku's master, and he was Darth Maul's master, and all that stuff like that. He's the one behind the curtain the whole time, if you didn't know that. I mean, I knew... I was a kid when these ones came out, and I knew that in episode 1. That was before anything I knew about, it was the same actor who played him. That was before all that. Let's talk about this guy on the steelbook cover here, General Grievous. General Grievous he's a droid, but he's the general droid. He is the bad mofo droid, and is he working with Palpatine? In the beginning, you kind of think he is. But then again, he's not really, because he kind of goes off and does his own thing. I mean, yes, he talks to Palpatine a few more times, and obviously Palpatine is still a higher ranked person than him because he follows Palpatine's orders, but I don't see him as an apprentice or anything like that. I don't. I think General Grievous is pretty much his own droid, and yes, he listens to Palpatine because he knows Palpatine has way too much power over him. So yeah. Let's talk about Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I like... Ewan McGregor is one of the shining points of the prequels. I guess you could say in Episode 1 he didn't do much. Episode 2, I liked him. Episode 3, I really like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yoda is badass as always. I'll talk about Yoda in a minute here. Ian McDiarmid still kills it as Palpatine. So, Yeah, I do have to talk about the late Christopher Lee for a second because in this movie, Count Dooku dies, and this is the first. Well, it's not really the first. It's the first that Palpatine. Well, I think he knows about the Sand People. Yeah, he does because he's mentioned earlier in the movie. He said, "You told me about your mother and the Sand People." I can't do an Ian McDermott impression, but I can do the Emperor a little bit better. But yeah, so he does know about the Tusken Raiders and stuff like that. But when he kills Count Dooku, that's pretty much his initiation into the dark side. And then when later on, again, spoiler, when he kills Mace Windu, that's when he's part of the dark side. Now, like I said, I liked the whole when Anakin was part of the dark side stuff, because that's what I've been waiting to see. That's what these movies were building up towards. It took a little bit too long, in my opinion. I think they should have done, if they were gonna, like, if Episode 1 mattered, Episode 1 should have been him the same age he was in Attack of the Clones, alright? And, he kills the Tusken Raiders in Episode 1. Episode 2, we kind of see him go to the dark side a little bit. And about midway through Episode 3, he should have gotten burned up and stuff like that with the fight with Obi-Wan, which I'll talk about, and get Darth Vader actual armor suit on. And the second half of Revenge of the Sith should have been, him in the Darth Vader costume and shit like that. That's what I would have done, but I think one day, probably not anytime soon, but I think one day I'll give you a video on how I think the prequel should have went in more detail. But yeah, Revenge of the Sith, like I said, it's definitely the best of the prequels. Let's talk about the fights, because other than the Darth Maul fight, the lightsaber battles just haven't really done it for me in the prequels. They haven't. Like I said, with the exception of that Darth Maul fight in Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. But, the fights in this movie, particularly at the end of the movie, with Obi-Wan versus Anakin, the fight that we have been wanting to see, I will defend that fight. I think that fight's awesome. Maybe not as good as the Darth Maul fight, but it's epic, and I like the setting on the Mustafar system. And, of course, simultaneously while that's going on, you got Yoda versus Palpatine. Well, Yoda versus the Emperor. And that fight's cool. That fight is awesome. If that doesn't tell you that Yoda is a badass, I don't know what will. Because that fight was cool, and, like I said, I do have a couple problems with this movie. Padme, I'm still not a big fan of her. I do like Natalie Portman, but not really in these movies. I just don't. I'm glad they kind of cut down on her and Anakin time a lot in this movie, so thank you, George Lucas. Let's talk about Jar Jar. Jar Jar Binks. Hate him. I hate the character of Jar Jar Binks. See Phantom Menace review for further details. Episode 2, or I'm just going to call them Attack of the Clones or whatever it is. Attack of the Clones, he was in there for a couple scenes. That was better, but he still annoyed the shit out of me every time he was on screen. Revenge of the Sith, we get one part with Jar Jar Binks in it, and he doesn't even speak. Now, that was perfect. Granted, it's at Padme's little funeral thing or whatever. And, yeah, she dies. They say she dies of a broken heart. Whatever. That whole shit was stupid, to be honest with you. And, by the way, where did the names Luke and Leia come from? There was no significance to those names. They just, in the movie, it's like, oh, well, let's just name them Luke and Leia because that's what they have to be for the original trilogy. In the entire prequels, there's no mention of a Luke or Leia that would, have any significance towards Padme whatsoever. So I don't know how she picked Luke or Leia as for the names. I don't get it. I do very, very much like the last 15 minutes of this movie a lot. When, like I said, at the fight and after the fight, and, when Bail Organa's taken Leia to Alderaan, and, Obi-Wan's taken Luke to Tatooine, and, Yoda's getting ready to head towards the Dagobah system and stuff like that. All that stuff I really love. I will defend, particularly the last 15 minutes of this movie, but I'll defend most of this movie. But, like I said, there's some things in here that even I don't like. Definitely the best of the prequels. But still not a great movie. The action is fun. The lightsaber battles are a lot better in this one than they have been, with the exception of Darth Maul. I do like this one a lot. In fact, I don't know, maybe, let's see, I was around 13, 14 years old when this movie came out. And I went home, because this movie came out on my birthday, actually. I think the date was May 18th. It might have been May 16th, but either way, it came out like right before my birthday. And I went and seen it for my birthday, and I was so excited that we finally had a good prequel. So I came home, and that's when I decided to make my YouTube channel. My first YouTube channel, not this YouTube channel, but my first YouTube channel. And I couldn't think of what else to call it, but I knew that I wanted to talk about movies and stuff like that. And because of the fact that Revenge of the Sith was still fresh in my mind, I named my first channel Sith 3 Revenge. And if you go to YouTube, you can still see all my old ass content that's still up there. And yeah, so I've been on YouTube for about what, six years? No, okay. So I've signed up for YouTube 10 years ago. Wow, I signed up for YouTube 10 years ago, but I didn't actually. I've actually been I've been posting videos and stuff like that for about 6 years. But when I made my account, it was about 10 years. Yeah, but I wasn't like really posting videos or anything like that. Wow, almost 6 years on YouTube. It's hard to believe, but it's true. It happened. So Revenge of the Sith, I do like it. It does have its fair share of problems, but I don't hate it like I hated Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. I don't. So all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and give Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith a solid C. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair. What do you guys think of Revenge of the Sith? Comment your thoughts on the movie down in the comment section below. Like the video, share, and subscribe. Just do it.